Those of you here for the first time, welcome. I'm Veedotme. The devs caught us basically sleep. Caught us with the pants down. We have Dead Cells Update 24 in the alpha. From the dev standpoint, they have a couple of things going. They have what you would think of as the normal game, a state of being where they want the game to be a specific way for everyone playing it. And then they have what you would think of as like meta. The meta in Dead Cells ebbs and flows with every patch, as any game does. But the devs are always wanting to get back to that roguelike standpoint where you're collecting weapons and the game kind of flows in the direction of the weapon that you have. So in that case, they do buffs and nerfs. According to the devs, they buffed over 60 items and they nerfed around 20. So 3-to-1 buffs to nerfs. So that's like really important to keep in mind. So going from top to bottom, multi-bind is probably going to be the most controversial one out of all of it. I first discovered dual binding from Korean gamer who happened to be playing Dead Cells. They were using double Valmont whip, and I've never considered the idea of dual binding the same weapon, let alone dual binding in general. So that like opened my eyes because I saw that the Valmont whip was 10 times better when you dual bind 2 of them compared to using 1. And that evolved over time where you were using like kunai plus firebrand. Now we're at like ice shards plus any weapon essentially works. None of it really matters because once you do the dual bind, you're basically telling the game, and I'm a main offender of this. I have builds on YouTube where the entire game is us doing this, holding the button, and then pressing this button right here. Every once in a while, you have to press jump, but overall, I'm just holding right and spamming square, and no monster can do anything about it. In fact, every color has a giga busted quad bind build, and that it's real. So I can see why, from the dev, they would rather have you spam the button because there's a mental piece to that. And I think that is a valid nerf to the player. And I've been saying this for a long time, where the Dead Cells player is getting stronger and stronger every patch. And the monsters aren't keeping up with it. So I think this brings the player back in line. I know there's going to be some people who aren't gonna appreciate this, but just keep in mind, I want to say the real offenders are stuff like the quad bind builds, say like phaser plus infantry grenade, or heart of ice builds that use giant whistle and sickle. I think those are the like really big ones compared to ice shards plus flawless, or ice shards plus stake fang, or ice shards plus kunai, ice shards plus electric whip. That one's probably pretty good too. So yeah, I think that's okay. Weapons can now reflect grenades and reflect all grenades in range. So that's basically your shoes, high boosted boots, Spartan sandals, that kind of stuff only hits 1 bomb in front of you. So now it like has a really cool gameplay mechanic to it. Really helps you against Hand of the King. And those weapons struggle against Hand of the King anyway, so I think that's really good. Disengage now prevents death if it's off cooldown. For those who don't know, this has always been a problem, both of these, where one hit protection activates at 25% of your max health. Disengage activates at 20% of your max health. If you're anywhere between the two of those, you will die if you get tagged by something that does more than 25%. I like that they made disengage better in that regard. But there's actually, as we go down here, there is a nerf to disengage. Activation threshold decrease and cooldown up. So a little give and take. It's not half bad. And then extra rooms for Derelict Distillery and Fractured Shrine and Undying Shores. The issue with those maps is, even though it's a roguelike, the map was basically the same every single time. Even though there's tiles that they move around, because like Undying Shores is a zigzag and it always has to fit the zigzag, the tiles can't be that random. So I like the idea of making it a little more compelling. All right, but we're at the big This is all we care about. Balance Blade, Assassin Dagger, Twin Dagger, Broadsword, Curse Sword. Curse Sword they buffed so that every hit is a crit, and I mean, sure. It sounds cool when it happens. It lets you use Instincto. So technically, like, that makes Curse Sword builds kind of viable. Like, you could go Curse Sword with Corrupted Power or Corrosive Cloud and spam a lot of skills. I think that's actually like kind of good. We got a Shrapnel Buff. I was already considering Shrapnel Axe as like an A tier or higher weapon based off its combo. They increased the damage, they increased Ripper, and I think it has to be good now, right? War Spear got shorter charge, weapon damage, and breach. That's a lot of stuff. It almost makes you think that this, because it's like got faster attack speed, might actually be kind of good. Maybe like the meta is going back to using this plus Giant Killer, or I guess Flawless. That's another example. All right, going back, Impaler. This thing, I don't know if it really deserved a buff, because I think on biomes, it's already kind of nasty. So now it just has the ability to kill bosses. And that in itself is pretty wild. Rapier, weapon damage and crit enabler duration increase. So we used to do the dodge roll and do like the multi-tap. And sometimes you wouldn't always get the crit. That's pretty good. Seismic Strike. They buffed the wave damage. And that's kind of cool because like you lock up your first enemy and you're attacking them with melee. And if anything else walks up, then they might die to the wave. I think that's pretty legit. Hayabusa Boots, weapon damage up, reflects all grenades. I think this thing would murder Hand of the King. At least I hope it's gonna work that way. Maybe it won't, but I would love to see it. Wrenching Whip, breach bonus increase. Wrenching Whip pulls enemies into you, so it makes sense that you don't want them to really like attack you instantly. Torch. Torch got a damage up, which I'm a little surprised about. They buffed the impact damage, so like every hit does more damage, and the fire wasn't nerfed. And we already called that a pretty good weapon, so that I think makes it only better. Flawless, weapon damage and crit multiplier increased. So I honestly think that these two together, like no more shields. We're just doing this to go through a biome, kill all the monsters with this, and then use this on the boss. If you get hit by the boss, then you swap the War Spear. I think that might actually be real gameplay. I think this might be better than Giant Killer, just to say that. Flashing Fans. Weapon damage and crit multiplier. No, crit multiplier increased. Correctly enables crit upon bouncing grenades back. I thought it already did that, because I used to knock back the eggs. And you get crits whenever you knock back an egg, but maybe it was a little different than that. Tombstone. Weapon damage increase. Doom now stuns enemies on hit. Slow-mo reduce. Could be removed by options. As long as the attack is faster, I think I'm okay with it. I think I remember people saying on the Dead Cells Discord that the attack speed of the first hit was increased. I think that's better than like any of this other stuff, so I'd be happy to see it. Oven Axe. Weapon damage and breach increase, charge slightly reduced, so more attack speed. I'll take it. I don't think that makes this like a giga busted item. Toothpick. Broken duration reduced. This, I mean, I'll take it, but I'm honestly not sure if this moves the needle. Now I'm stuck in big form for longer, where I might want to be in broken form. But I don't know, maybe I just don't know how to play the Toothpick. Status Stiletto, crit up, absolutely fantastic. A lot of people are sleeping on this weapon still, but I think it got a nerf down below. Spike Boots, crit multiplier increase. I don't use the Spike Boots mainly because I don't find it to be very fun, but this might actually kill Hand of the King and Mama Tick, because they do constant attacks and you can always like attack them during it. And then this one, I don't understand this at all. Snake Fang buffed? I mean, we were calling this an S. Well, I guess because they remove ice shards, they might be thinking, oh crap, everyone's just playing this with ice shards. so we may as well do something to it. Okay, let's give it the buff. And then finally, Oil Sword critical damage increase. This I think was actually required because there's not a ton of fire sources in the game, and the crit off the Oil Sword is actually lower than some of the base damage of some of this stuff. So I think they had to do that. All right, and then some tiny nerfs. We have a nerf to Sadist Stiletto and War Spear. Remove the Poison Cloud from Sadist Stiletto. Okay, that's fine. War Spear crit multiplier decreased. I think that's fine because they increased the attack speed and it was already like really killing stuff. All right, Bow and Endless Quiver buffed. Now works with Barb Tips. Sonic Carbine weapon damage increase. I think with Barb Tips as well, Sonic Carbine actually is probably moving up. Ice Bow freeze duration increase, that's fine. Oh, Boomerang. A lot of people are thinking Boomerang might be the next level weapon. They increase the travel speed and they increase the damage. Whether that really like helps you kill Timekeeper, I don't really know, but I mean, I'll take it. Boy Axe, weapon damage increase, breach increase. Like, we already really like Boy Axe, so just give it more stuff, more damage. Nerves of Steel, however, they just increase the damage. Like, compared to Sonic Carbine, I think I would just use the Carbine now. Now that Barb Tips, it's a thing. Firebrand, impact damage increase, that's fine. We aren't really using that a ton, so just give a little bit more. Magic Missile damage up. This plus Wings of the Crow. As a matter of fact, if we were to go to Hand of the King, activate Wings of the Crow, and just spam Magic Missile underneath you, and actually skip a phase, I think it might be like close to S-worthy in that case. Blowgun. Added a poison effect. Thinking about that doesn't sound very good. But now I actually think that networking plus blowgun is the hit. Because like you shoot the first dart, if it doesn't kill, the monster gets poisoned. So every time you shoot more monsters, they hurt each other because of the poison. Pyrotechnics can now pierce. Piercing on Pyro sounds kind of busted. Specifically because like it's a combo. So if you can throw like every hit of the combo through all the enemies, that's like kind of strong. Fire Blast weapon damage increase, that's fine, but it also got another buff down at the bottom because they buffed Instinct of the Master of Arms. All right, Quick Bow nerf now requires 3 arrows instead of 2. The attack speed's really fast, so I don't think it's gonna like absolutely kill the weapon, and still works on bosses. Alchemic Carbine, I think this buff, this nerf is warranted. We were actually clearing whole biomes with just Carbine, and I think that's probably kind of screwed up. I feel like Carbine is supposed to be like just a poison source, but the fact that it's killing prison quarters by itself, that might be a problem. Hokuto Bow, DPS bonus, duration, and AoE decrease. I like the AoE decrease, because remember, it's like, it's popping on one enemy and it's going to all the others. You could potentially kill monsters you can't even see. I think I'm okay with that being reduced. The duration being reduced, I don't think I like that. It's 20 seconds. How long does it take for an arrow to fall out of an enemy? If it's 30 seconds, then we might have a problem. Maybe it's not that bad, now that I think about it. We'll have to play around with that one. Electric Whip dot DPS decrease, so that means you have to use attacks more often, and the dot itself won't kill everything. I think that's okay, because it's pretty easy to attack with Electric Whip anyway. Ice Shards, big nerfs all across the board. Damage down, slow down, crit down. And this was already doing like barely any damage at first. Now this is like solidify as just a slow and a little bit of crit, like cooldown reduction crit. Frontline shield, 50% buff, 50% on anything is like really massive. Cudgel stun duration increase, I don't think I care. I think the only way I would use Cudgel is if it worked on Scarecrow and Hand of the King. Assault shield damage increase, a little bit of something for all our speed runners. You'd be surprised at like how much you can actually kill with Assault Shield. You're also like knocking enemies off the platform. So I think any buff to Assault Shield's probably good. Greed Shield damage up, that's good. Spike Shield damage increase, okay. Parry Shield increase reflected damage on projectiles. So like if you think the Giant, Timekeeper, stuff like that, these would probably destroy Timekeeper. And Knockback too. I actually like Knockback in the backpack. Nerf the Punishment. Damage down. I guess good on the spoiler boss. Spoiler, you get the aura every time you parry its actions. I think that's probably good. But maybe that was too easy. So it gets a little nerf there. And then Thundershield .DPS. I think that's okay because the shock itself, I think, still does damage. It's just the dot. The lingering damage is lowered. And then the stun duration. Honestly, I barely use the stun at all. All I do is parry one time and I get the aura around me. And I'm perfectly content with that. Oh my goodness, there's so much more. Infantry damage up. Sure, we'll take it. Stun grenade, damage, duration, and range. I think there's a comma that's supposed to be there. This thing is surprisingly tiny, so I'm really happy to see that they buffed the range. Ice grenade, freeze duration up. I feel like ice grenade already had a long duration. Root grenade, damage up. If you're using wolf trap, for example, you could opt out of wolf trap, take a root grenade into the giant, fight it, and then you still have root grenade for Hand of the King. So I think that's actually really good. Swarm, worm stats increase. That's a scam. So it's like, on what planet does buffing the stats of the wormette matter when they just die to the slasher in one hit? Hand of the King is another prime example. Like, you throw those into a Hand of the King fight, they're instantly dead. Like, they don't even get to deal their damage at all. I don't think damage up on the worms is the right move. They need to survive. That's their problem. Tornado, damage up, cooldown reduced. I don't know what the cooldown is, but as long as it's less than 20, I'm happy. No, corrupted power, damage buff increase. We just had a what does corrupted power actually do on Twitch. I think it's kind of not that great, except if you're using quick bow or balance blade. So maybe this helps a little bit. The real issue is it doesn't work on anything like slow. Has to have fast weapons. Lightning rod, damage up. Lightning rods are kind of hard to use. I think in all honesty, what would make it better is just making them easier to use. Scarecrow buff, we'll take it. I actually think the sickles are really good. Not like broken, but very, very solid. Barney, damage up. I still hate Barnacle. I will probably still continue to not use it so long as the other turrets exist. But some of the turrets got nerfs, so maybe we are gonna have to use Barnacle from now on. Flamethrower nerfed. Tesla coil nerfed. You all knew this was coming. There's absolutely no way this thing like remains to see the light of day. Patch over patch. DPS down, range down. That's huge. Lacerating aura nerfed. DPS down, duration down. We always use lacerating aura with cooldown reduction anyway, so them making the cooldown longer is almost a requirement because we're using this thing way too much. Owl nerfed, reactivation DPS decreased, so that means an enraged owl does less damage. Crusher damage decreased. Now this one, I don't know if I necessarily agree with. It does work with Heart of Ice, so every time like you put a crusher down, you can spam crushers thanks to Heart of Ice. But it only ever does the one hit anyway. You can't do more hits with crusher. So I don't feel like we're like doing more damage than we're supposed to. I think the issue is that most monsters can't fight you while in a crusher. Tonic, I don't really get the tonic nerf. Are you all like getting giga busted builds? Busted build hunter with tonic? Like, I get it. You get move speed with swift sword, you get the tank attacks, but like you're losing no hits and stuff like that. Maybe I'm just not seeing it. We got mutations in here. Some of these gotta be nerfed in the ground. Vengeance buffed. More damage when you get hit. Combine that with the tonic, full block with this thing, Spite Sword, coming back. Adrenaline duration increase. That's surprising to me. I don't ever use adrenaline, but maybe like the secret combo. Well, no, you don't really want to dodge roll after you use Vengeance. Or I guess you can. Maybe that is the strat. So Hand of the King does the one swipe, hits you, you dodge roll through the next one, get the healing, and then you just heal off Hand of the King, get all your health back? Is that the hit? Scheme buffed? Okay. I don't think this thing need to be buffed. I think it's actually fine. Porcupack buffed. It has a damage up, but I honestly don't think damage is the problem. I think it's the cooldown. Ripper buffed. More damage, more arrows ripped out. Can't wait to try this with the new Shrapnel Axe. I'm really excited about that. Networking buffed. So again, blowgun, moving up the needle. Point blank, starting value up. You use it as soon as possible, and it's like not 10% bonus damage. Now it's like 20% or even higher straight out the gate. And I feel like that's kind of weird. I don't know if it really needed that. Soldier resistance buffed. I actually like this because I don't feel like Soldier's resistance bonus health is really all that high. I feel like the bonus damage at the very start was really low. It's like 5%, which is nothing. And then at the end, it's 25%. Blind Faith. People are using Blind Faith off color. I am really surprised that this gets a buff. Like, I saw people using Blind Faith in tactics builds with like Thundershield and Knife Dance. Or brutality builds with Bloodthirsty and like Fire Grenade. Counterattack bonus damage. I don't know. I don't really know what I want to see from counterattack, but give it a buff, sure. What doesn't kill me? This thing I'm gonna have to really pay attention to. Specifically, internal cooldown reduce. So back in the day, you could only heal off a monster one time, ever. If this means that I can heal more than once off of one enemy, that's like kind of strong, I think. Extended heal, duration reduced. That's a buff? So you heal the amount faster, but you were getting bonus damage while you healed, and that's now gone. A little bit of a give and take. I know it's called a buff, but I'm gonna actually put it in the both tier. Spite damage up. I still don't get why Spite and counterattack both exist. I honestly think they could consolidate that into one mutation and then give us something else completely. Frostbite damage up. Yo, that's my item. We're using that with victim slow nearby enemies? Buffing this? I don't know if that's correct. I think that might be kind of strong, but okay. Instincto, internal cooldown reduce. As I said, that's a buff to Fire Blast. Back in the day, you would always take this with Fire Blast, but it looks weird. It like does damage, but only like 1 second comes off every second. It's like half a second. If they buff that some way, I think that's really potentially strong. Recovery, duration multiplier increase. So recovery is up even longer now. Again, this with this and this with Spite Sword gotta be busted. And then finally, Necromancy. Necro we stopped using, but they, I think, buffed it to 65% or 75%. Nerf the barb tips. This thing, DPS down, tick rate down. And then apparently there was some giga busted stuff where people were taking Ripper plus barb tips so that every single bullet does a Ripper immediately. I had no idea that existed until now. As long as this thing doesn't like instantly kill Spoiler Boss, that's a nerf. If they didn't fix Spoiler Boss with barbed tips, I think it's probably just as good as it always was. Alright, Gastro, healing bonus decrease. I think it only heals you a bonus 65% now. Now you don't get all your health back from one baguette. I think it's still very viable. It's healing that you don't have to worry about. All you have to do is find the food. And it still works on every color. You can still do this while tactics. Perfectly fine. Heart of Ice, starting value decrease. I think that's very fine. Triage, healing and speed bonus decrease. I don't know how I feel about that. You're basically saying that you're only ever gonna want to use this on a boss. If you use the triage in a biome, you lost like so much potential health. It's kind of rough. And maybe that is the idea, where they don't want you to use triage in a biome. Maybe you use Necromancy. Heal up in a biome that way, and then you only do triage on bosses. Maybe. And then finally, Disengage. They reduced the threshold of activation, which is kind of scary. Like, if it's any number less than 20%, I'm really kind of worried about that. But they did buff it so that if you have Disengage, you cannot die so long as it's up, which is like better than what it used to be. There are so many tales of people dying with Disengage still available, and that will finally go away. Yo, are we good? What didn't get touched? Bloodsword untouched, all the crossbows untouched. Maybe they could have buffed the square, the vertical on Scythe. Tentacle untouched. That one, I don't know. I think they could have done something for Tentacle. Vampirism untouched. Come on, you can't give me something for Vamp. Maybe they're just waiting on a full rework. I miss Lightspeed. Thank you. Thank you. Lightspeed, they finally gave people what they asked for, which was damage going out and damage coming back. The worry was that every monster you're just gonna double tap, like go in, go out, and kill every monster. The theory, the fantasy of doing double tap dashing. We'll finally find out. Yo, that's cool stuff though. Thank you, devs, once again knocking it out of the park. Couldn't have done a better patch myself if I was a dev. I love reading patch notes. It's really awesome stuff.